Oh, what's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way. So, cursed paintings. Not necessarily in the way that we might modernly describe cursed, although it's strange, the definition of cursed in the modern era. I'm talking about things that have been depicted as either haunted or, like, just straight up creepy, I assume, and responsible slash urban mythed to cause certain things. There's a whole Wikipedia article on supposedly cursed paintings that you can then go and explore further. Obviously, that's what Wikipedia is for. Here's a big tip, by the way, if you are a student, okay? Wikipedia is not your source, but Wikipedia cites sources. Use Wikipedia's sources. Just double check to make sure that they're good, and then you can use Wikipedia's sources. Just use it as the engine to find your sources and not the source itself. The sources that are listed are real, and then you can check on those and make sure that they relate to your topic. And yeah, you've done it! You have created a reputable source for your essay, but that is a totally different line of topic. I just figured that I would share that because I've shared that before on the internet, and people have been like, you're a genius. Like, that's what I did all the time. High school, college, like, if you don't want to use their search engines, you can use Wikipedia and just find sources that way and then look up the sources on other places. So, something to consider. But yes, today I figured that we would look through some supposedly haunted paintings, cursed paintings, and even though I've got CSP open, I'm probably going to be using it to thumbnail, but I did get art supplies, and I will talk about those briefly for a moment before we dive into this whole thing. Mainly I'm going to be using acrylics because, yes, I wanted to actually paint this painting. You know, like nothing against digital art, but just having something physical I thought would be cool. Whether or not it'll curse me, I mean, I made it. Why would it curse me? But, you know, I guess we'll have to see. I am skeptical, but I'm also cautious. So when it comes to things revolving around the occult, I'm fascinated by them, and that's why a lot of these paintings are really interesting to me. But at the same time, like, like I'm more willing to look at the maybe the explanatory side of things. Lists of reportedly haunted paintings. So we've got a lot of portraits. Portraits are a big notion toward this. So we've got Bernardo de Galvez. It's at the end of a hallway in Hotel Galvez in Galveston, Texas. I believe I saw a video on this, actually. Some claim to see a skull in flash photography of the painting, and according to local folklore, you must ask politely permission for the ghost to take a picture of the portrait or else the photo will be ruined. Henrietta Nelson died falling down a flight of stairs at her home. Was buried on mausoleum according to her wishes. However, new owners moved in, destroyed the mausoleum. Why? Moving her remains to a nearby church. According to legend, Nelson has haunted the grounds ever since, trying to return home to her desired resting place. Yeah, seriously, it's like, even if you buy a new house, if there's a graveyard on the property, you just, like, I don't know, make amends with the ghosts, you know? Like, oh, man, that is how you get haunted. Like, if there's any way to get haunted, that is how you get haunted. Man proposes, God disposes. That's the polar bears down here. Rumor that a student committed suicide, but there were no records of a death in the gallery. I mean, why would there be, honestly? Another legend says that anyone sitting in front of the painting during an exam will fail it, which led to teachers covering the painting with a Union Jack. Death and the Child, which just overall looks very... it's obviously very distressing. It's a child witnessing his mother's death. The girl disappears. Munch's mother and sister died of tuberculosis, and the memories of that trauma were recurring throughout his work. Munch was also influenced by the nihilist Hans Jaeger, who urged him to paint his emotional and psychological state, described as soul painting, leading to his distinctive style. Yeah, if there's anything that's gonna have energy connected to it, I feel like it's stuff like this. It's stuff like this that has been painted in a mood with a sense of thought and likely trauma behind it. And yes, the motif of small children in these cursed paintings seems to be fairly common, because then we also have the crying boy, which I believe is not depicted here, but you've probably seen it before. Yeah, of a little baby. Oh, my face is in the way. We've got this little baby crying. But it was a very popular painting to be printed. British tabloid The Sun, which I've heard is just terrible for information anyway, reported that an Essex firefighter claimed undamaged copies were frequently found amidst the ruins of burning houses. The conclusion reached by the program said that the prints were treated with a varnish containing fire retardant, and that the string holding the painting would be the first to deteriorate, resulting in the painting landing first down and being unharmed. So yeah, that was the story behind this painting overall. Fairly quick, I guess, debunking, you know? But yeah, when I first heard the concept of this painting and I hadn't heard the attempt at debunking it, I was like, that doesn't necessarily seem like the painting is cursed. It seems like the painting or the prints are lucky. Just not in the way that one might necessarily consider it, right? Think about like the cricket from Mulan, right? Like, in a sense toward the other characters, he wasn't necessarily lucky unless you go for the whole, like, holistic trusting the universe situation that he drove the plot. The cricket himself avoided death multiple times when he shouldn't have, and was in fact like espoused as being lucky, like in and of himself, but he couldn't give luck to others. The creature itself was lucky, and that's what I'm saying here. The painting does not give luck, but I believe that the painting may in fact be lucky, if that makes any sense. The painting or the print being an object obtain a sort of luck. In this case, the luck being a fire retardant print varnish. This one is my favorite. This one, and I learned, weirdly enough, this one was one that vexed me for quite a while. I learned that the artist might actually be from my hometown. Hands Resist Him, created by Bill Stoneham, and God, it's so small, the picture that they decided to take of it. It looks creepy. And there's even like an orb or a half moon chilling out in the background there. The boy is based off of a photograph of the artist himself at age 5. The doorway is a representation between the waking world and the world of fantasy and impossibilities, and the doll is the guide that will escort the boy through it. The titular hands represent alternate lives or possibilities. The painting became subject of an urban legend and viral internet meme in 2000 when it was posted for sale on eBay alongside a description saying that it was haunted. Purchased by actor John Marley. That is a terrifying photograph of him. Where are his eyes? Where are his eyes, Wikipedia? He was in The Godfather. After his death, the painting was found in an old brewery by an elderly Californian couple, as stated in their original eBay listing. Appeared for auction on eBay. According to the seller, the aforementioned couple, the painting carried some sort of curse. They made a series of claims that the painting was haunted, including the claims that the characters in the paintings moved during the night and would sometimes either leave the painting and enter the room in which it was being displayed. Also included listing a series of photographs said to be evidence of the incident in which the female doll character threatened the male with a gun that she was holding, causing him to attempt to leave the painting. The auction page was viewed over 30,000 times. Now that is how you advertise a painting. Like, all in all, that is how you grab an audience, is by saying something is haunted, and I think that is, honestly, probably one of the first and most noted instances of that. Just say that something is haunted. If you think that it's too creepy to be sold by itself, which it kind of is, and I feel like maybe it would be, valuable to someone who's really into kind of spooky or occult paintings, but then if you say that it's haunted, if you say that it is cursed, which it still very well damn near might be, then, yeah. I feel like you're going to get a lot more interest in it. There are sequels to this. After an initial bid of $199, the painting eventually received 30 bids and went up almost 10 times its original price. This is my favorite, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it. You could see the whole bit of sequels. They're so cool. Look at them. That's so cool. So yeah, first one, Resistance at the Threshold, and here you can see the actual piece a little bit closer. I feel like an old lady. I should know how to zoom in pages. Hold on. There we go. There we go. I figured it out. Here you can see the original painting in its full big glory. Finally. And this is also a nicer way to see the website, I think, with the art and stuff on it. Copies may not currently be available due to a film project constraint. So within like sometime within 2021, I think somebody was aiming to create some sort of film based off of this piece. I think that's a like a small crescent moon. But yeah, you can see here. Let me try and get even closer. Yeah, you can see here what she's holding. People would say it looked like a gun, and that was actually a battery. That's got to be the moon. And then all the hands in the background. This is a delightfully creepy painting. And I love it. I love it. This is the final piece that he made in 2021, which is gorgeous. Look at that. That is so cool. Oh, and the little skull. Oh, there's the cell battery. That's funny. He made it in more detail. Yeah, I remember seeing this. That it's like, so initially it's him at the door with the doll, and the doll seems to have turned into a little girl at some point to aid him. He's like kind of wandering through what remains, as is put there. The hands invent him, so it shows then a little slightly bit older than the original kid depicted making the scene. Oh, and yeah, you can see the little half moon hanging in the background. That's cute. There. I just think that they're so cool. These are some of my favorite paintings. Is that a giant ass bee? This is a giant ass bee. Yeah. Resistance of the Threshold. Threshold of Revelation depict the boy and the doll as having progressed. The doll into a real girl, the boy into an old man. The prequel, The Hands Invent Him, also commissions depicts the artist as a boy, with the original painting's characters viewed from behind the glass door. The series ends with What Remains, created in 2021. So the artist is still living. And there is a book by D.K. O'Neill, who currently owns the rights to it for a movie. Oh, so there's a book if you want to look it up. A poem inspired the painting's title. He's of the seeing visions, his strokes reveal them, in a rush of color, of madness, of mystics, and his head in the lightest center. It must confront its enemy. The hands resist him like the secret of his birth. His presence is the sanctum of heartbeat, felt in darkness and passion. Its sound the sole gift of that silence. R. Ponzetti, 1971. So this came out a year before the very original painting came out, that poem. Interesting. The story. This is from the artist. Well, where to begin? Well, I've always had a connection to what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. I think we all do. Artists, especially visual artists, are barometers for the currents that run through this collective. Dreams are a common experience that people may have with this. Anyway, my own experience is a sensitivity to place, physical, geographical place. There are memories, echoes of all life within a place. Maybe that's why it's called channeling. When I painted The Hands Resist Him in 1972, I used an old photo of myself at age 5 in a Chicago apartment. The hands are of other lives, the glass door, thin veil between waking and dreaming. The girl/doll is the imagined companion or guide through this realm. Both the owner of the gallery where Hands was displayed and the Los Angeles Times art critic who reviewed my show were dead within a year of the show. I'm sure it was a coincidence, but some of what I paint resonates within other people opening the inner door. Or basement. By the way, I still have no idea what happened to the character actor who bought the painting at the show. Editor note, it was John Marley who died in 1984. Or how it ended up abandoned in a building, though I could speculate, says the artist. Bunch of stories that you could look into talking about, I guess, the nature of this painting. I think that it's super cool. Now, gosh, I thought his other art is really abstract and cool. Well, there's the artist. He looks cool. But yeah, I remember seeing somewhere it was listed. Yeah, the spokesman review. Painting Goosebumps in the Night. Yeah, so this is my hometown. Spokane artist works become so hype it's scary. From the spokesman review. That's the only one that I can see that says that it's from my hometown, that he's from my hometown, and then he says he grew up in Boston, which I mean, like, he might have and then moved. Like, I'm not saying that he couldn't have, but I just think that that's weird. I don't know. But that's also interesting that I kind of took an interest in this painting, and then it seems to have been connected to me in some way, kind of. So that's why I like this one. That's why I really like this one, that this is cool. I think that it's cool, and I think that my main inspiration, though we have other things like John Wayne Gacy's self-portrait, or like kind of bad things happening. This is pretty cool, though. The Rain Woman. Artist Svetlana Telets felt like she was constantly being watched. One day, she was sitting in front of a blank canvas. A clear vision of the final painting appeared to her. She felt like someone was controlling her hand, sketched the composition for 5 hours, and spent another night refining the details. And that's another thing that I've heard from some visual artists. It's talking about just the like, and I mean the artists of the Hands System said something similar, right? That like there's that feeling of connectedness to like something else, that maybe that inspiration comes from some sort of like collective, almost like some like things that you aren't immediately like basing off of like your experience are coming from something deeper or higher or something like that, you know. I mean, obviously a lot of the first art was like religious and stuff like that, and like I don't know, it's an interesting concept at the very least. So yeah, seeing someone saying that like she basically just like free associated a painting of a woman, multiple people successively bought the painting, only to return to the seller after describing the figure following them in their homes and dreams. One temporary owner described white eyes appearing everywhere he looked in a paint and returned the painting with an offer to pay back half the purchase price, fearing he might drown in the eyes if kept any longer. The piece was eventually purchased by the musician Sergei Skanchov in 2008, though reportedly his wife later hid the painting after seeing a ghostly figure walk their apartment at night. A person has a spirit and a soul. They are truly spiritual works of art, and they're soulful ones. And the painting you were talking about represents just such soulful art, and it doesn't come from God. The artist puts into the work the mood which he was in the time of writing, and I do not know who led the artist at that moment. Oh yeah, and love letters. Said to be haunted by Samantha Houston. So yeah, it's like a lot of these are either associated with a person or something like that, and the ones that don't seem to be immediately are like portraits of relatively random small children. Which, you know, kids can be creepy, so I guess that makes sense. So what I might try and do is try and find maybe even like on this person does not exist, or just kind of go from like mine. Like I'll probably use like a reference from there and make sure that I'm not using like an actual like living child reference, and then I have an idea for maybe what I want to depict in this painting. I also have a series of art supplies that I do finally want to use. Give me a moment. Okay, I got my stuff. So yes, I actually went and bought some more like brushes and like a palette, because I didn't necessarily have very usable ones laying around, and this is my paint box. Now this is a combination of random things that I bought and paint from my art school days. I also got some stuff I was considering making a video on, but I'm not usually a an acrylic painting type of person. But I saw this whole like, I think it was on Reddit, but it was a Tumblr post talking a little bit about like the early feud almost between Stuart Simple and Anish Kapoor, and their like whole conflict and stuff like that, and like just kind of showing how like I guess how petty artists can be toward each other, especially is like we have a tendency to be a little dramatic. I think the arts folks, so I don't blame them, but I thought that it was funny. It was like whichever like information you looked up, it was like, yeah, some people are being a little dickish, yeah, some people are being a little overreactive, but it's also hilarious seeing somebody just completely like deny like a very established and probably fairly cocky artist. So I thought that was fun. If you want to look into that, you definitely can. It's all over Wikipedia, and I know it's on Tumblr somewhere. But there was this whole conversation about paint and Vanta Black, which is very toxic actually and should not be used for art, but that's another factor that folds in later on, and beans and stuff like that. So when I heard that there was paint involved, I did in fact get Black 2.0, and they had a limited run on the site at some point, and Jesus, this is neon. So I thought that I would try and use these two colors. God, use is so neon. What's funny about this particular purchase as well, is that I bought them and this wasn't a pre-order or anything like that. So I went in and I got this along with my Black 2.0, spent $50 on paint, which is way too much for me. And I waited, like, cause they said, like, oh yeah, with COVID and with like strikes and stuff like that, it's gonna be a couple extra days to get your art shipped out, but it'll be fine. I didn't even get an alert that it was shipped for a month. And so I finally sent them an email like, hey, what's going on? And the like hours later I got an email that was like, your paint is on the way. So I think somebody forgot about me. That's, that's okay. I know. I'm not mad or anything. It was definitely a bit of an impulse purchase. So, me and my bad spending habits, I could wait forever for something. And I typically don't have too bad of an experience like getting things online. So it was more of a novelty than anything. Like, knock on wood. But like I'm not usually the type to be getting a lot of like shipping hazards. I'm going to probably play around with these paints to figure out what I'm gonna do with them. And yeah, the finished result will probably be very mixed media because that's just how I tend to work, and I think that it will work to my advantage. So yeah, I'm probably gonna jump over to voiceover and talk a little bit about this process. I know that it's probably going to take a while, so should get on that. Yeah. So I started in my art comfort zone digitally to map things out. I knew I wanted to keep the colors relatively minimalistic, although my first attempt just wasn't my favorite. I think I just wound up going for way too much detail way too quickly. I considered going straight to canvas after I kind of figured out what I wanted to do, but like I just figured I would go for one more go in the concept, and I'm really glad that I did. It was much more simplistic in the colors, but just adding a few highlights made it come to life like instantly. Along with the inspiration I took from the other paintings, I also decided to base this partially off of a relatively new favorite of mine, new being based off of my having read it recently and not necessarily about the release of the book, but I based it roughly on some bits from Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend. It's practically a novella too, very to the point, but somehow it just invokes such emotion. Anyway, the main character took me as kind of a scrawny, mopey boy with a mop of black hair. Kind of Tim Burton protagonist leaning. There's also a kitten in the back, another aspect from the book, and I kind of wanted them to look like Grim, who, if you're new, is a kitten I found relatively recently. She's got a tiny white blaze on her neck and one on her belly that's kind of hard to see. She's really there just to even out the composition though, because I really wanted that one bucket on the one side. It's the ocean. If you haven't read the book, that will make zero sense, but just trust me, it's the ocean. Alright, moving on to my desk, the big event. Initially, I was going to try and show this process on my webcam, but then I totally forgot to record any of the canvas toning portions, so that kind of reminded me to go get the DSLR. I like using it, but it has such a short battery life. I know there are ways to extend it, and maybe I'll make that my next project. Even with a relatively nice camera on hand, I don't think that does the orange here much justice. It is hazard sign orange. It is reflective vest orange. I kept looking over at my desk while it was drying, thinking that I had left something on orange. It also kind of smelled like wall paint. Like, paint is paint, but standard acrylics definitely have their own smell. If you worked with them before, you know this. And this smell, it smells like whatever base they used, the one that they used specifically for wall paint, which makes me imagine a room painted with this stuff. I think I would go crazy. I know that's the concept of the painting in and of itself, okay, but it's supposed to be a mid-tone here. The paint itself is obviously very pigmented and pretty opaque, fairly thin though, which made me instantly regret not covering my desk with anything. It's cool though, it's fine, I got it cleaned up. It does seem to dry quicker because of this though, which is really nice. Made a fast process of covering the canvas. After all that dried, I went on using one of the extra goodies that Culture Hustle sent me with the paint, which is an equally Dayglow pink pencil. I always have such a rough time sharpening pencils now. I have some pretty okay sharpeners, but the first few times always lead to the lead falling out. Initially, I thought it would be good to see if this paint played well with others. It mixes fairly well, but the resulting reds I got were... maybe the cadmium red light? Ugh, it just all looks so washed out by comparison. This is the part that I like to call, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. It's gonna get worse before it gets better. It's gonna get worse. Okay, so maybe I line it a bit, see where I can salvage anything, and well, the black 2.0 is much less opaque than I thought. Ah, shit, I gotta mix it first. These paints were sitting around for a good few months before I got to them, so that was totally my bad. I just decided to pour out another pot of the fully shooketh black, and I got an idea to use the thinner black with something later. Another go at the shading, going for kind of a monochrome look and pretending the orange is like either white or the lightest midtone. I like this much better. Another weird issue I had with the Canon though is that it'll just decide to start randomly be done recording, which is probably why you're gonna see a lot of skips. It's likely a setting I can turn off, I'm sure. I don't know where it is, and I don't know who thought it was a good idea in the first place. I'm not looking up at the viewfinder if I'm in that sort of art mode, so I don't know how much of the process got left out. Just let me face the consequences of my actions if I forget to stop recording. Don't decide when I'm done. Hopefully not too much got cut out, though. If it did, I apologize for that. Okay, so I know we've been over the shading a few times, and I mixed up those reds, but what if I just added that light cadmium? Okay, it's basically the same value as the black wash. Cool. I think somewhere around this point, I also started to realize that his head was just a little crooked. A little touch of art advice if you work at a flat desk. Maybe either adjust your canvas up every once in a while or stand up to get a better view. Otherwise, you might wind up with some things a little bit skewed. I also decided to add in a bit of mixed media that I had intended from the beginning. The idea was to paste some newspaper onto the walls and paint it with paint to make it look like there was, well, like wallpaper. Thankfully, my grandma still gets the actual paper, so I had some options. I chose some bits from kind of wild articles, something about Ukraine, and then a piece talking about an ambulance catching fire with a child in it. Everyone was okay in that article, but jeez, wow. I think I may have overworked the face a little, especially because by comparison the rest of the canvas felt like it had zero texture for a while. I went in here and there and added some interest. I do love traditional art for this. The feeling of physicality, thumbprints, textures, both intentional and unintentional. I'm also just kind of impatient when it comes to art though, and I'm not always looking to make something with that feeling with it. I also have very little space to work with. What you see here is basically what you get. I have this tiny pull-out secretary desk and then like the computer on the top tier of it that is not really anything. Not the computer, the monitor. My computer is on the floor. Maybe I did invoke a little something, honestly, because as I progressed, I had to turn autofocus off, although that might have just been the lighting. It kept fluctuating in and out, so I'm sorry if that looks rough on the speed up. Also, the tripod just fell on me at one point. Twice, actually. One unrecorded, but those were my bad. Me? Clumsy? Never. Must be demons. Okay, finally getting around to adding that last little bit of white, which was just mwah! It adds so much life, and even on top of the orange, it just glows. I don't know if it's the base of the orange or something like that, but it just works so well. I considered adding just a little bit of black to try and emphasize that paper a little bit. Nope, that's a lot. Actually, that looks kind of okay. Ooh, yeah, it looks like the room is on fire. Yes, I did this after I signed the piece. Shh. I like to sign my physical work with just my name instead of my username. I think that it looks nice. But yeah, that's it. That is the final piece. I know my inspirations were more realistic toned or semi-realistic, but that's never been my vibe anyway, and we would have been here much longer. I might add more to it, or I might not. I'm gonna get a coat of varnish on it after I'm 100% sure it's dry. Don't want to smudge anything. But let me know what you think. I had fun kind of geeking out on this one. It's been on my mind for a hot minute, and with spooky season on the way, I feel like it's pertinent. Also, this is the first video I've made after hitting my first milestone goal of 50 subscribers! If you have any suggestions for other weird or funny art stuff you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. Give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe, obviously, to see more. Next excuse I get, I'm probably going to try to do my own makeup. I never do makeup, so here's your chance to encourage me to embarrass myself. I'm very impressionable. Regardless, I'll see y'all next time.